welcome everybody to our webinar. Marissa, do you want to do a little intro real quick?
Sure. Yeah, so Huntress is actually one of our cybersecurity partners, and we definitely wanted to start getting some content out there that kind of shows the value add of some of those different things that we're doing in the background that actually are keeping you safe, even if you don't necessarily see it. If you don't see it, that's actually probably a good thing. I did actually see that Nick is on this call as well. He's our cybersecurity analyst. So either one of these guys are very knowledgeable. They can answer any questions you may have, but I think this is going to be a great presentation. So I'll just kick it off to Ethan.
All right, super. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for Zombies, Ghosts, and Hackers. But don't be scared. The slides are going to be awesome. And I am a sales engineer on our partner success team. Our agenda today, we're going to talk about the evolution of hacking from fun to profit, then hacking as a business. We're going to talk about the evolution of cyber defense, and finally, why human defenders matter. And then we'll totally open this up to questions and answers today. So, hacking from fun to profit. Let's travel back in time a little bit to, the 90s, when really there wasn't cybercrime, it was really hacking that was going on. So 1990s, internet is beginning, you're starting to get trivial hacks and defacements of websites. You're getting some initial attacks against banks. Kevin Mitnick starts to come on as a name people know of. There's the Melissa worm that's released via email. Maybe something to think about. Emails and ways to get infected started way back then. Windows 98 released. Those who actually are old enough to remember it, yeah, that had some security holes, we will say, in it, to put it nicely. Then, the 2000s started to come along. Software security really was still not well understood or researched, and it starts to find vulnerabilities in Windows. Then also in the 2000s, now everything begins to get connected to the internet, and hackers start having opportunities to get into things like government systems. And it is a race to connect everything, but without the security. But hacks are mostly focused on activism and fame, because making money during this time period is hard. How do you turn a hack system into cash you can spend? The banks are tracking your movement of money. Finding a buyer is challenging. If only there was a better way to help you get some money. Oh, we then in 2000s, start to get Bitcoin and cryptocurrency developed. Now you have a pseudo-anonymous, it's not totally anonymous way, but you have a way to transfer money easily that doesn't get reversed very well. And you can exchange it for some goods and currencies. Well, now maybe there's something you can do with that hacking knowledge in moving forward. And so then we start to get the rise of ransomware. Now, back in the early days, the good old days of ransomware, this would be like early 2010s, 2013s. I actually remember these days. You would get attacks that maybe would hit one person. It'd come in as a phishing email. Once again, those emails can be dangerous. And a user would get tricked into opening something that would encrypt their machine. Worst case scenario, normally in those situations, you only got a whole office encrypted because somebody forwarded that email to everybody in the accounting department. It was like, we can't open this PDF. Please open it. Ideally, your backups were protecting machines, and so there wasn't really a need to pay the ransomware crews at that point. You could recover your file backups pretty easily with good backups. Maybe you had to pay a ransom if an executive's machine got encrypted and you hadn't stored files over on the server. I know that happened to us when I was on the MSP side. But trying to buy Bitcoin, oh my goodness, I remember trying to buy my first $300 worth of Bitcoin, the effort that took. So it still was challenging. Well, The hackers then started to come up with some, more effective ways to develop some ransomware. They started to make it so that their attacks were silent and they could get on everything at once. They also started to make sure that individuals maybe weren't as important as finding businesses, and started to do, big game hunting starts to develop. Well, at this point, now you're really moving into effective ransomware. And now hacking can honestly become a business when you take down a whole environment. And it is a booming business. Last year, 2021, $6.9 billion in losses was reported to the FBI. That is only reported cyber crimes. So we know that number is underreported. For instance, there was only about $45 million of ransomware reported last year to the FBI. I say only, but we know that number was much bigger. Honestly, about a third of this number of reported losses was business email compromise. So think about that. Once again, email. So this is where people are getting into email systems and convincing people to send, money because they're sending fake invoices, things to that effect. Good note there is that if you do report losses in a business email compromise to the FBI or the Secret Service, they have about a 90% recovery rate, or at least freezing those numbers. So definitely something to think about in this. But how come it's booming? Well, cyber criminals have figured out that the best way to earn money is specialization. And just like any business out there has realized specialization is the key, this eye chart that I popped up here has all sorts of specialization. You can be just an initial access broker where all you do is focus on getting into a machine. Or you could be a ransomware as a service group who creates some ransomware software that you sell to other people. You could be a bot master. There's a job for just about anybody who wants to participate in this cyber crime. So let's say you want to go forward. Well, first, you need to find some victims. So why not go ahead and rent a phishing environment where you send phishing emails to people? But that might be challenging. Sending those marketing emails, they don't always open them. So why not just go onto the dark web and buy some victims? Here is where, example, on Torum, you could go buy, for as low as 350 a session to get access to it. Purchase it in Bitcoins, instant delivery, or, what, maybe it is the fact that you don't want to invest in buying a list. You just want ransomware as a service. Go buy package number one for 12 months for $900. Also, this implies that there's a package number two and a package number three, and you can buy additional SKUs. So the point here is that this is a real business. And as we go into the real business, they also have great customer service. They realize that as a ransomware crew, that you need to provide value for your ransoming. So give some helpful tips once they've compromised a system. They also have an HR team who, refer a friend bonus for hiring. And if you join the ransomware for Vulcan, they don't target medical facilities. So this is a good bad guys to go on to. Also, just like all of us who work in businesses, they have employee manuals to teach their people how to do their job better. Here's the entry level tech with initial exploration. Here are the steps that he or she needs to do. So, as cybercrime has evolved and become a business with specialization, our tools have needed to evolve. So, there's a framework called the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, National Institutes of Standards and Technologies, put out by the US government, with a framework to identify how attack should be thought through. And so they kind of go through multiple parts for a response, if you will. So there's identify, which is looking at everything in an environment and understanding what's there. Protect, this is where your antivirus, your next gen antivirus is going to stop that malware from detonating or exploding. But then you get into detect and respond, which is seeing those things that have actually gotten beyond your next generation antivirus and then taking responses because of that. And this is what's called in the lingo of our business cybersecurity EDR, endpoint detection and response. And the final step of recover is honestly recovering data when there's been an incident. And so that compromise happens right in the middle of between protect and detect. And our tools, the older tools, were made for stopping compromise. But as we have realized more and more that we live in a post-compromise world where threat actors are understanding how to get beyond a next generation antivirus, and we need more sophisticated tools. And where it becomes important as well as we move across this triad, you can see at the bottom, people become more important because technology can find out some things, but you really need people to understand this. So, what is defense evasion that EDR maybe sees? Well, here's one example is we can see that the threat actor has gotten into an environment and is stopping all of the antivirus services. Here's Sophos in particular and McAfee, but they will go in and stop the AV so that they can keep doing whatever they need to do on it. But this is what an EDR can see. Also, we can see a reverse shell. This is probably the most troubling attack that Huntress sees, which is a reverse shell is when a computer is used to be calls out to a command and control server and basically sets up a communication. Well, that is the challenge because most of our time we're protecting the external um, internet with a firewall. But a web server is a machine that calls out from internal out to the bad guy's threat actor environment. Thankfully, with EDR, we can see a reverse shell be executed via PowerShell. This is showing in the upper right there an obfuscated PowerShell command that our EDR can pick up. Privilege escalation is another thing that we see. It's the most frequent. And with our EDR capabilities, we can see when somebody tries to get admin rights in an environment. Well, obviously, you want admin rights because you want to be able to make it so that you can come back into the environment. You sent that phishing email, you got them to click on something. That was hard. Email marketing, we know how hard it is to get responses on it. But so become a local admin or a domain admin so you can get deeper into an environment and take advantage of vulnerabilities. Then the thing we see that they try and attack, which ideally your antivirus alerts on, but at times we have to use our EDR process insights, is credential dumping, where they try and grab all of the credentials on a box and dump them to a file so that they can exploit them. And now, ideally, in the threat actor's mind, they're going, oh, we know users reuse passwords. Well, if we can reuse those passwords, we can get into other things throughout the environment. So that's another attack vector we can see that gets by your managed antivirus solution. And so this might be a whole putting the whole picture together of EDR where a threat actor goes in, kills the backups. They steal some credentials. And actually, I should have started this at the bottom and worked my way up, where they identify accounts, They do Cobalt Strike, which is that reverse shell to get out for command and control. They steal the credentials. They enumerate the network to find out what is there. Then they go and kill those backups. Now, the whole point of killing those backups, obviously, the next step would be to try and do a ransomware because now somebody has to pay the fine or the ransom. So, why do human defenders matter in this? Because I am showing you this EDR, it can see it. But there are just so many different threat types with EDR. It is the who's who of process analysis. We are literally at Huntress capturing every single process running on every single endpoint. And we are writing detections that see all the different ways a threat actor could come in. Well, that is a ton of information, and it could potentially create a whole bunch of noise. And if you're just getting alerts, there can be alert fatigue. So at Huntress, we provide people who have context and clarification. We have a 24/7 threat ops team based in Australia, the UK, and the US, so people aren't chugging Red Bull in the middle of the night. They can, these are highly trained security experts who are able to figure out what are the key things to do, and if it's necessary, who will isolate a machine when they see a hands-on threat actor in an environment. And that isolation kicks that threat actor out of the environment until a planned remediation can be taken forward. Now, what are some of those things that what makes hands-on threat ops teams so important is that they can dig deep into an issue. So, software isn't going to dig deep when it sees something. It will see, for instance, that, like Tim said, we got a process insight, which is our EDR functionality, back on August 4th. So we're actually able to go in and look historically what else is going on and giving some more information what it decodes to. So this could be done by software. And then it does a reverse shell back to an IP address in Lithuania. So we're able to see that, provide context to it, and provide that information and report. But where we actually dig further is that we can see other things, such as Screen Connect, which is a legitimate tool used by some MSPs that was used in this particular instance to do an attack. Well, we notified that partner of ours, and apparently that partner hadn't enabled 2FA in their Screen Connect environment. And so a MSP had potentially had a really bad day, which we alerted them to. More detections. So here is Cobalt Strike, which is the hacker's favorite tool to create a command and control center. And what our people did, they identified Cobalt Strike being called out in our EDR. And they also said, well, it looks like it started over on server 16 with what's usually called CACBot. Um, However, it also, and down below, we said it has a bunch of ports open. And so our threat ops team can identify those ports that are exposed on the internet and notify our partners and say, hey, here's some other things you need to look at. There is a machine called Gift Laptop with RDP exposed with Yvette. And there is this server that has a SQL server and it has a Unify login. So we try, what people do is they can provide context to the incidents that are happening and give our partners more information. And then our favorite thing our threat ops team loves to do is they love to find pen testers. So people hired by somebody like AtNetPlus to investigate a network. They're it makes their day, as you can see, that we find pen testers who are testing environments and we get to isolate and call out incidents to them. It The Slack channel lights up with love at those parts. So I've kind of gone through what Huntress does, how we work in the security stack with AtNet Plus, and I am wondering if people have any questions about what next generation antivirus is, why a managed EDR solution like Huntress is critical for layering on security. And I am wondering, what things, other questions people might have on there. And as I am looking, I do see one question about that's coming in direct to me, and it's asking about how does Huntress notify partners? So what we do is we notify our partners via their ticketing system. And if it is that after hours time frame, our 24/7 threat ops team will provide um, Yep, that and Michael actually was asking similar. So yes, our 24/7 threat ops team will go through and isolate an attack. So anytime we see a hands-on threat actor, which is where we can see our team, which is where we can see that threat actor doing a Cobalt Strike credential dumping lateral movement where they move from machine to machine, we will isolate those hosts. And this is all done via our team. We don't want to do it automatically through our software, but our team will has a queue of tickets based on priority that they go through and will jump on immediately. Normally, we are kicking threat actors out of an environment in less than 15 minutes of the time when it's been alerted into our system. And that happens at any time of the day. Last night, I was on a call earlier with a partner this morning where we isolated 4 different machines. We saw 2 machines with threat actor activity on them, and 2 machines that we suspected the um, threat actor came in via by one of the 2 machines. We weren't totally sure, and so our team went isolated those machines and sent a report with all of our details over to the MSP. So in this case, we'd send it to AtNet Plus. Their team would then run with it. Um, and we make it very clear for somebody like Nick to remediate what we find. Because the key part that threat actors want in that cybercrime chain is that at the end of the day, getting onto a machine is hard. So normally what we are seeing are what I would call the initial access brokers, where they get onto a machine and try and get information and then try and create persistence. And we have developed our tools very well to see that. And if we see persistence, to give an alert to AtNet Plus Nick with all the steps to go remove that persistence so they can't get in, as well as some extra information, if there is a malicious IP address somebody is coming in through. Um, those are the key things. I think we're basically at about our time at this point. I'm not seeing any other questions. Oh, one thing I did want to do is 2 things, I guess. One is to make sure everybody knows that for AtNet Plus, if you are on any of their security solutions, you have Huntress as protecting your networks and your environment. So this is already baked into the services that AtNet Plus is providing you. And then the final thing I just want to do is relay a story about why humans are important. And it's not just our threat ops team making the difference, but all users make a difference. So one of the things that happens is users get phished, and we as an end user are the most vulnerable part for most networks. And the key thing about that is that it's sharing information is what's going to actually protect the environment better. So one of the things I encourage all organizations to do is when those phishing emails come in, actually make them public. Tell people, I was phished. Here's what's going on. Now, don't send around the phishing email with the links, but like take a screenshot of it or just send a message. I got a phish today. Because that awareness helps everybody realize it's happening all over the place. One of the favorite things to do at Huntress, honestly, in Slack is to post screenshots of Kyle, our CEO, texting us, asking us for gift cards. It is by normalizing this and having conversation about it that we as humans actually will protect the environment that much better, and we can all do our part in cyber defense. Marissa, that's all I have. If you have anything you want to say at the end here, otherwise, I will end this.
No, I think we're good. And like we mentioned, the recording will be available if you ever want to reference any of this information again, and we'll be sending it to the people that didn't end up being able to make it today. But I appreciate your time, Ethan, and everybody that joined us.
Thank you very much and have a good day.